Well, and all the stragglers out there, we're going to make this really fun. So if you hear our voice and you're enticed to learn more, come sit down. I'm Samira Panah Bakhtiar. I'm the general manager of our media, entertainment, games, and sports industry at AWS. And I'm delighted today to be able to interview Hannah Elsakr from Adobe.
So if you work in vector, image, audio, video, and it produces those things, it understands motion paths, it understands your brand identity. And so therefore, when you're working with a Foundry model, you are in a universe, right? You're in a branded universe. We're working with all the largest studios, some directors, producers who want those things, both for previs. Some are using it in a dailies process. And then obviously for the beauty VFX fixes at the end that when you're on a short time crunch, you really could use help with.
I think that's incredibly important. And I want to come back and talk about some of the use cases specifically around AI native studios. I think for the audience too, it's important for you to know why we've asked Adobe to be here. Adobe is one of AWS's largest and most strategic partners. I believe at reInvent in December, which is AWS's largest technical conference, we had your CEO on stage with us. And I think as you hear about these products, like Firefly Foundry specifically, you can feel good and relative to understanding that a lot of that has been built on AWS, both in terms of our chipsets, as well as a multitude of different services. And it's one of the reasons that we like to go to market with Adobe in this fashion. And I think one other thing that's new at NAB this year for NAB, for one other thing that is new about AWS's presence at NAB this year is our real focus on content production at scale and how important it is for us to be able to provide a multitude of different partners, services for our creatives. We have an entertainment loft here where we are showcasing our work with Prime Video, with Luna, and we've also made a targeted focus of bringing a multitude of different partners that focus on the creative space, whether it is synthetic tools, for color grading or editing the content, or it's full-scale generative imagery. I think that's an important distinction this year about how we're showing up.
Yeah, and I think we've optimized a lot of our creative tool set on AWS, and so it's optimized to run really efficiently there. You've been a really good partner to us, and the reason it's so interesting to talk here as well as at Summit, which is across the way, is that my belief is that you need very specific solutions for the media and entertainment business in the generative space. So things that are generalized and perhaps not tuned to understand, or not tuned on 16K or 16-bit, for color grading, is not really going to help someone who's trying to produce theatrical level quality output.
Right.
We're not in the memes and consumer business on this front. We're really trying to help people do their highest quality work. And that's where I think you'll see in the next year really a separation between generalized world models that might have general knowledge or very specific tuned models that understand the craft and the workflow you're in. I mean, creativity at that level is in our DNA. It is what we've been built on. And so that's a major focus for us going future.
Well, I think that's a perfect segue. My understanding is you are opening the doors to third-party model integration. Can you talk about why and what that will look like in practice for those creatives?
That's also part of my fun job as new ventures is we did open up our ecosystem to third-party partner models, and that was about a year ago. We have 30 models available in GA, in our tools, Firefly, in Photoshop, in Premiere Pro, and that was really a request from the creative professionals who said, I don't want to leave my Adobe tools. So I don't want to be forced to decide between models. I would just like to have them all here in one place, especially in the pre-visualization process. So I did talk about nutrition labels. I do care very much about IP protection, but when you're ideating, maybe you want 4 or 5 different models to give you outputs for you to make sure you're exploring the whole canvas of ideas that you have in your sketchbook. And so we did bring in, partners, all partner models, for that. Now, moving on to Foundry, I think that's a different use case, and we are working now with certain partners to deep tune and have deep tune hooks. Google announced obviously that we were their only partner able to deep tune Veo models, and we have some other partners that we're also doing that with.
That's really interesting. So I think that's a good segue to this notion of true AI native studios, I thought we could take a minute to unpack, like, what does that actually mean in practice? And what have you seen over the last 18 months relative to what's possible based off of that really bold claim to have a truly AI native studio?
Maybe I'll be a little contrarian here. Okay. Because I mean, we work across a whole spectrum, and I said this yesterday, as well. This is a huge technology shift. This is like when the camera launched, right? And disrupted painting. And there was a rejection of that idea from painters in France who said it's killing painting. In the same time, it actually opened up lots of a Cambrian explosion of styles there. Same thing actually with Photoshop. When we launched Photoshop, it was initially met with some rejection from artists because they felt like it was destroying crafts. Digital art, obviously, if you didn't learn Photoshop, you might have missed something called the internet, right, when that came out. So I think we're in the same phase. So I know we're all jumping to AI native studios, but we produce in a certain way. You all have workflows that you are living and breathing in. And first, the easiest thing is to adopt in the familiar. So there are things in the workflow I call the creative drudgery, that you may want AI to help you with, because that's not really high order strategic thinking or creative thinking. That's where I would say a lot of the really best studios, maybe they're not 100% AI, but they're AI forward, and they're looking to fix those parts. The two places that are the easiest to start, if you're not doing it, pre-visualization, like I said, is something you're always under budget on and under time crunch. That is an obvious place to start. VFX, vanity fixes at the end. The boom was in the shot. I didn't mean it to be. You're usually doing that highly manually. And I think this is where tuned models with AI are super helpful. How it helps in the day-to-day, the dailies of production is to come. The AI native studios are awesome because they are trying to create what I would say almost like the Hollywood lot of the future. Mm-hmm. What is the workflow of the future? And we work with, of course, a lot of those same directors that you do who are really pushing the boundaries on what the tools can do. Technology is changing week to week. And if you look at what the models could do a year ago, a lot of uncanny valley. We're getting better, less 6 fingers, better motion pads. We're still in early innings on that one.
Yeah, I think what I really love about what you just described was the genius of and. You're not forcing your creatives to have to choose. At Amazon, we like to say that there's genius in the word and tyranny in the word or, because sometimes you're forced to make deliberate trade-offs in the creative process to be creative or to be able to have speed to market, as an example, or to be able to experiment, iterate fastly, or have security and the right level of guardrails in place. So I think by being able to open up the service to integrate third-party models allows for those creatives to really have optionality to leverage the right tool at the right time. And to your point, be able to still engage with an experience that they love, right? To your point, they don't want to leave Photoshop or they don't want to leave Firefly.
I mean, a premise I don't think anyone's going to argue with me is like creativity is innately human in the sense that the way, if we deep dive into, how the PhDs are tuning the models, they're going to give you what they've learned. They can only go back in time and give you what they learned, and it's kind of at a normative average output level. So it's great for exploration, but the initial idea has to come from you. There's like an incredible artist that we worked with, Norman Teague, who's a furniture designer, right? Obviously he's making furniture. He's doing Obama's presidential library. And he was showing at MoMA, and he said, I want to try using AI in my ideation process because he has hundreds and hundreds of ideas in the sketchbook and he is limited in time and space. So he normally would explore 4 of those things. And he said with AI, and, he admitted it's actually my assistant who learned how to prompt, not me. But we can explore 100. And sometimes the hallucination actually, he said, hey, I didn't think of that. Those things are interesting. So he coined this. He TM'd it, but I will borrow it, which is he views that AI is a search engine for his imagination. And I think that's a lovely way to think about it, which is creativity still sits with us. Creative choices still sits with us. But hey, I would take another paintbrush in my toolkit that can help me with that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's appropriate for me to also share a story. We're going to be diving deep with filmmaker John Irwin this afternoon. He's going to be here with Amit Jain, the CEO of Luma AI. So the two companies came together. They started a new production company called Innovative Dreams. AWS is the infrastructure provider behind that, helping to make their filmmaking pursuits a reality. And as a result, they've been able to pioneer a new form of filmmaking, called real-time hybrid filmmaking. And essentially, Hannah, it plays off of what you just described beforehand. They're leveraging two different modalities of filmmaking, live capture, and they're combining that with virtual production. And they're able to run the filmmaking processes in parallel versus a traditional linear process. And they're bringing the editors onto the same sound stages as the actors, and they're producing the film in real time. And to our knowledge, it's the first time that anything like this has ever been done. And they're leveraging a multitude of different tool sets, creative tool sets, as well as model provider outputs to be able to cultivate something that is final pixel. And I was able to watch a clip that they had produced with Sir Ben Kingsley, the Academy Award winning actor. And he was describing the experience. And to me, the experience that he described was quite shocking, because you would have expected an actor to come in and throw a lot of shade on the use of AI in the filmmaking process, but it was exactly in contrast to that. Ben Kingsley was articulating how the experience was so robust for him and how acting behind a green screen is so limiting, and being able to now be in this very immersive and interactive space where they could make edits on the fly, and then the visuals, they could prompt for a visual and then the visuals show up and then they could proceed with the next scene, was something that accelerated the creative pursuits. And so they were able to create the content faster. They were able to do it cheaper, but I think most importantly, they were able to do it in a way that was incredibly collaborative, and they were able to also bring jobs, I think 100 different union labor jobs back on set as a result of it. So I think it was a great example of how AI is being used to really amplify creativity, and then this notion of having a multitude of different tools that could be provided to be able to enhance the experience, like so important.
Change is hard. I mean, as humans, I don't think we like change, and it does take innovators to go and try. And what you described as a new process, we'll go through lots of iterations. Like, we're working with various directors, various talent and producers. And I mean, it's a learning agenda. And so I think if you come at this space, it is like the early 2000s, right? Where you're hungry to learn and you're willing to experiment, you're going to go very, very far. We haven't seen the last of it yet.
So I want to talk about the future in a second, because you segued to that, but we talked about some examples in filmmaking. We named some directors that are leveraging this in real time. I think we're hopefully now exemplifying to the audience that this is real. We're way past POC. We're way past experimentation. Filmmakers are really leaning in and leveraging these tools in order to be able to create really engaging, dynamic experiences that audiences can connect with. I wanted to now bring it back to the tech. Since we're at NAB, let's talk about the tech. So we like to talk about like a unified full stack. We like to talk about it within our company. You like to talk about it within yours. I thought we could unpack that a bit for the audience.
So I think with AI, one thing we have not talked a lot about is governance, and observability. And I think choosing the right partners. So there's going to be a lot of people who are vibe coding in their garage, a replacement for enterprise solution X or Y. I think, if you haven't thought through all the security, all the IP, all the governance and the scalability, I would just, again, think twice about that. Choosing partners who are at scale. Amazon, Adobe. This is where, as you think of constructing your stack, you start to get into a very strong architecture. And as things are moving, you're innovating all the time. We're innovating all the time. You benefit. It's a hedge on moving forward as we go. We live in the tool space, right? And so lots of people are experimenting across modalities now. Maybe you were just a static image digital worker, or you were a vector expert, or you were a film. Actually, AI lets you move across those modalities in a better way. Obviously, we're optimized on to run on AWS as well. So that's kind of an interesting place where we're going with infrastructure.
Yeah, I like that. And I think just to return the favor and articulate how we look at the unified stack, we want to be able to be in the business of providing choice to all of our customers. If they want to be able to leverage our chipsets in order to be able to build their own models, they can. We have Trainium and Inference, which are chipsets that provide very cost-effective price performance for both training and inference workloads. We also provide third-party chipsets like NVIDIA as an example for our customers who want to build on that stack as well. And then as you move up the stack, very similar to the example that you gave with Firefly Foundry, we have Amazon Bedrock, which acts as an API layer for you to be able to access hundreds of different foundational models with governance, guardrails, and security that you would expect from the world's largest and most broadly adapted cloud. And then on top of that, we have various generative AI applications that include services that can help with spec-based IDE environments for customers who want to vibe code and build out end product propositions as well as enterprise pursuits. But I think, in my opinion, and why we're here at NAB is also all of the partner applications that are built on us that can really help with those creative pursuits. So when I think of full stack, think about that everything that AWS offers plus all of the different incredible partner services that can be layered in to enrich the experience. So as an example, at the booth, we're demonstrating Comfy UI and the ability to be able to spin up multiple different artist workstations in real time. It's a great example of their applications running on our stack. We've got Adobe very much as a focal area there for creative pursuits. We've got examples there with Asteria, Moon Valley, as well as social department to also demonstrate how you can layer on that stack to be able to really focus on the end use cases that you care most about in content creation, as well as in distribution, as well as in monetization. So that's, I think, from an AWS perspective, how we think about the full stack and why the partner community is so important to helping us meet those use cases that matter most in the creative pursuits.
I mean, I'm sure, in the media and entertainment space, this is part of our focus. This is what we are hyper tuning our tools to do. And we are moving forward, in the next generation of things like, one of the interesting things in Photoshop when we launched generative fill, fastest adopting toolset, which is a generative feature in the workflow because, hey, I don't want to push these pixels, and if you can put it right there in the flow, Premiere Pro as well, with generative extend, sometimes you're just missing that hair of a beat to line up and being able to extend the clip organically that looks very much in keeping, saves an editor a ton of time. So it's an exciting time.
I love it. I want to shift to skills. So we can take in two directions because I think we kind of touched on it a bit, but I think skills and roles are changing really fast. It's important for us to be able to preserve the creative pursuits. Any tips you would give relative to the audience on new skill sets that they should adopt or where you feel like we should lean in across Hollywood?
And we haven't talked about agents, so we
haven't. Go ahead.
I think that, I said it already, like curiosity is got to be the number one thing you're interested in the space, right? So I would say, learn something new every day, like try something, even if you're not a filmmaker, go and try some places so that you can educate yourself. And honestly, that's what our team and ourselves, like we are just trying to drink, our CEO calls it drinking your own champagne. Try it as much as you can. That is what is needed in Hollywood right now. So I think having the conversation, we talked about a little bit of a gap on education. And that's why I bring up concepts like responsible IP, protection in AI, nutrition labels. Those are really important. And then agentic, I think, again, early stages. You mentioned Comfy and Node building. That is not new, right? Node and graph building workflows. But the idea that once you have a workflow that works deterministically, right, and then putting an agent against that, I would not put an agent against something that you want deterministic flows and then possibly, you get something different. But in certain workflows, like I shot this at noon, but I really need it in golden hour, those types of things are knowable. Again, if you have the models that are tuned at 16-bit to preserve depth. So curiosity number one, try the tools, create a safe space for those things, but then be use case driven and try to scale. I don't know if you CFOs who are telling you your budgets, but our CFO is like, you're on a flat budget. So you got to move from experimentation to scaling things and creating more efficiency and space for yourself.
Well, I think that's, in my opinion, as we look forward across the next 12 months, I think that's going to be the most strategic unlock is the adoption of these agents to really allow for creatives to no longer focus on undifferentiated heavy lifting. So I think anything that you know is repetitive, that you have to consistently do, that like in your heart, you're like, oh, I don't want to have to do that again. Like those are perfect use cases for you to be able to deploy a team of agents to be able to solve for those actions. Now, we've been focusing on agentic workflows across QC as an example. So, for streaming, it's very easy to imagine. You typically have broadcast engineers who are watching for signal degradation or any type of quality control situations. And when they arise, you have to remediate. That's a perfect use case for agents. You can run an agent that's tuned to understand the metrics and logs of your CDN for your encoding and transcoding services. And then the moment that they see degradation, they can provide all of that logging, provide correlation, and give you recommendations on remediation. In my opinion, those are some of the really, really strategic ways that agents can be used to be able to get you away from the things that are undifferentiated, right? And really free you up to focus your time on new pursuits.
That sounded nicer than my word, which was the drudgery.
The drudgery?
Yeah, well, and if you talk to anyone who started as an intern somewhere, compilations are really big, right? They would send an intern into the closet and be like, find the clips that all said 99 cent is a great deal. It's like, okay, feels like maybe an agent or AI could help you with that. Still need creative QA
100%
in the process, but is that how you want to spend your intern days? Maybe not.
No, not at all. But I also think that's like a great and very practical demonstration of just going back to like video understanding and vector embedding and the ability to be able to pinpoint specific scenes across an entire library of content. How can you then monetize against that by being able to find the right things at the right time, automate ad break detection, figure out the contextually relevant ad to be able to place? All of that can be agentified, right? And it really then again frees you up then to focus on the creatives or on deal making or on a million other things that will probably provide higher yield than those level of activities.
We haven't gotten into new formats. I mean, we're here at the Sphere, spherical. There's new formats. It's a new way of digesting. Audiences are consuming in shorter and shorter clips, micro dramas.
Yep.
Not judging anyone. I watch them too.
They're a thing.
Okay,
People like to throw shade on them, but they are a thing.
Shooting for
$1 billion of ARR for companies like Real Shorts. Like that's not an experiment.
Exactly. But shooting for vertical versus cutting for vertical, if you talk to directors, it is a very different craft to shoot for a vertical format. We want to spend our time thinking about those hard problems and storytelling, not on removing booms, in a clip and post.
I love it. You just gave me like a tee up. I got to take it. So AWS launched AWS Elemental Inference, which is AI cheat code for you to be able to take content that's shot in horizontal or landscape and be able to automatically convert it into vertical feeds. It does it with 6 to 10 seconds of latency. So you can literally run a vertical feed live and parallel to an existing production. And it also provides AI clipping as well for your VOD-based assets if you want to be able to post them on social as an example. So to your point, like really focusing on how you can use AI for new formats, new viewing experiences is incredibly important. So Hannah, we've got like 3 minutes left. Got like 20 other questions we didn't get to. I'm going to leave it open for you. Like last words, words of wisdom, things that you're thinking about right now. What do you want the audience to hear?
I think we're getting, I hope we're not actually talking about AI as a thing unto itself next year.
Preach.
So thinking about the workflow, I'm all focused on the workflow. I think a year or 2 years ago, we were all focused on models, which is important, but that is like at a base level. How does the work get done is the question. And of course, I started with the workflows of today. A lot of movie making, I think, is still like a legacy out of the Hollywood lot of the 20s. And so I think thinking about the workflow of the future, maybe it's not linear. We talked about this parallelizing things, will make more stories get greenlit. There's some really great thinking around if you can lower the economic risk. We're not seeing a lot of original content come out anymore, right? We're seeing sequels. If you can lower the economic risk, people can greenlight themselves into new storytelling, which I think is an exciting place. So it's not really a tip. It's more of like what I think is exciting for the future. If we want to get on board, again, be a learner, be curious. It doesn't matter how senior you are in your organization. Be the one who asks the dumb question, about how a tool works or how I can work in it. that's all I can encourage.
I love that. I think that notion of parallel production is so important. And if you unpack that for a second, I think when we talk about linear production, it's really capturing and then editing and then formatting and then distributing, and it's sequential and it's hard and it takes a lot of time. But to like start to unpack that into like atomized portions and run all those things in parallel, it's such a unlock to your point, more creative content, more creative voices being able to come to market. And with the cost continuously coming down for some of these features and product sets, I feel like it's going to open up the doors to a whole new wave of storytellers to really engage and share their craft with the world, whether it's creating it or distributing it. It really, I think, puts more power in the hands of creatives. So, Hannah, I think we like went everywhere. Thank you so much for being here with us. I really appreciate the partnership that AWS has with Adobe. You're fantastic. Congratulations on an amazing Adobe Summit this week. And I can't wait to see what we build together going forward.
Have a great rest of your show. Thanks for having me.